Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever wondered why someone pulls away right when things start getting good, this one's for you. Today, we're unlocking the secret to emotional attraction, and trust me, once you understand this, the way people respond to you will completely change. You'll learn how to stop chasing, start drawing others in effortlessly, and finally feel in control of your love life. So grab your focus and let's dive into the topic that could redefine how you show up in relationships. If you're ready to level up in love and in life, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started. When you truly begin to see yourself as the prize, everything changes. Not just in how you view relationships, but in how others respond to you. It's not about arrogance or inflated ego. It's about grounding yourself in self. You stop entertaining situations that don't reflect your worth. You naturally raise your standards, not by announcing them, but by living them. Your time, your attention, your emotional energy, they all become more selective. You're no longer trying to earn approval because you know your value doesn't increase with validation. When someone can feel that you're rooted in self-love, they treat you differently. You show that you're not desperate for connection, but open to it if it aligns with your inner peace. That alone makes your presence powerful. Acting like the prize doesn't mean being emotionally closed off. It means you're full within yourself and you've built a life you love outside of any romantic connection. You carry yourself like someone who's whole, not someone waiting for someone else to complete her. When you're grounded in your own fulfillment, you're more magnetic, not because you're chasing, but because you're attracting. There's a calm confidence that comes with being selective about who you allow in your life. Not every call gets answered. Not every invite gets accepted. You have a rhythm, a routine, a personal standard that's not swayed by temporary attention. You're not auditioning to be chosen. You're observing who's worth inviting in. That subtle shift turns the dynamic entirely in your favor. Your value isn't something you need to prove through effort. It's something you embody in the way you speak, walk, and make decisions. You don't need to argue your worth or compete for attention when you understand that authenticity is your greatest advantage. In a world of people pretending to be what others want, being true to yourself is rare and refreshing. You don't shrink to fit someone's comfort level, nor do you inflate to seem more appealing. You live from a place of quiet certainty, and that energy cannot be faked. It's not about playing hard to get, it's about being genuinely hard to reach, unless it's aligned. People sense when your attention must be earned, and that's what sets you apart. You begin to experience peace when you stop giving time to situations that feel confusing. Clarity becomes your new minimum. You no longer chase mixed signals or decode inconsistency because you know you deserve something stable. You let people show who they are with their actions, not their words, and you respond accordingly. You aren't afraid to walk away, not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself too much to stay in emotional chaos. That's what power looks like. You're not asking for consistency, you're expecting it. And when someone falls short, you don't demand they rise, you simply step back. That quiet step away says more than any argument ever could. When you live with this mindset, you also attract different types of opportunities, not just romantically, but in all areas of life. You start showing up with a stronger sense of purpose. You're more present, more vibrant, and more intentional with your time. You're not waiting to be chosen. You're choosing your environment every day. You're designing a life that reflects your values. And the people you meet either enhance it or don't fit into it. And the more you invest in yourself, the more people sense that being in your space is a privilege. They approach you differently because your energy communicates something rare. You're full, not empty. And fullness doesn't chase, it attracts. People naturally take notice when you're not operating from lack. There's something deeply attractive about someone who's not needing anything from anyone to feel whole. You're not proving your worthiness by bending, overgiving, or compromising your peace. You don't seek permission to shine, and you certainly don't apologize for your standards. You speak calmly but firmly. You love without losing yourself, and you leave without creating drama. That calm self-assurance doesn't come from pretending, it comes from deep internal work. It's the product of choosing yourself so consistently that the world has no choice but to respond in kind. It's also important to understand that being the prize doesn't mean you expect perfection. It means you've created inner peace and you protect it like your life depends on it. Because it does. You know what it took to get there. You've lived through chaos, questioned your worth, and healed from places that almost broke you. So now, when something feels off, you don't force it. You honor your intuition. You pause. You pull back. Not to manipulate, but to protect your energy. You understand that it's better to be alone and in alignment than partnered and in pain. That's a level of strength few understand, but many admire. This way of living doesn't make you cold. It makes you conscious. You become more thoughtful about how you give and who you give to. Your love becomes a gift, not a currency you trade for approval. You're no longer afraid to be misunderstood because your peace is more important than being liked. You speak with clarity, act with intention, and love with boundaries. You stop trying to convince others of your value because you already live in it daily. That unshakable inner world creates an outer life that reflects it. And the people who are meant for you will recognize it immediately, not because you chased them, but because you didn't. There's freedom in letting go of the need to perform for love. You're not available to prove anything. You're just available for alignment. And that mindset alone draws people back, not because you manipulated the outcome, but because your absence feels like truth. It reminds them of what real self-worth looks like. When you no longer attach your identity to who stays or leaves, you're free. You're free to love without fear, walk away without guilt, and stand firm without apology. And in that freedom, your energy becomes unforgettable, not because you are hard to get, but because you are easy to respect. That's what changes everything. Not tricks, not games, not reversed psychology. Just real, grounded, unshakable self-worth. When you live that daily, everything and everyone adjusts. You don't have to make people return. They feel the difference you made. And if they're meant to find their way back, they will. But you won't be waiting. You'll be rising. You'll be becoming even more of yourself. And that's the whole point. To live so fully and love so freely that you never feel like you've lost anything when someone leaves. Because in this version of you, you are the gain. Always. There's a kind of magic in emotional contrast that most people overlook. It's not about being dramatic or unpredictable, but about creating an experience that others remember deeply. When someone thinks of you, what you made them feel will always outweigh what you said. You become memorable not because you were perfect, but because your energy was distinct. Maybe you brought laughter in a time of stress, or peace in a world full of noise. Maybe you listened with full presence while everyone else was distracted. Emotional contrast is when you give someone something they didn't even realize they needed. You don't have to perform, you just show up with authenticity, and that becomes rare enough to miss. That becomes something people crave again. Most people operate on autopilot, bringing the same energy to every interaction. But when you live with intention and show up as your full self, you naturally set yourself apart. You're not trying to entertain or please, you're just being fully alive. And that's incredibly attractive. You're not afraid of silence, but you're not afraid to speak truth either. You know when to be still and when to bring joy, and that balance leaves a lasting impression. You don't rely on surface level conversation, you're willing to go deeper. You ask questions that open hearts. You listen with the kind of presence that people aren't used to. In a world where most connections are fleeting, you become unforgettable through depth and emotional honesty. Emotional contrast also means having the courage to show different sides of yourself. You're not always happy, and you don't pretend to be. You allow others to see your strength, your softness, your fire, and your calm. When someone experiences the full range of your emotional presence, they can't put you in a box. You surprise them, not by trying, but by being fully human. And when someone sees that you can handle your emotions with maturity, they feel safe. Safe to open up, safe to feel, safe to be seen. That safety is a gift. It creates space for real connection. And real connection creates emotional memory. The kind that lingers long after you're gone. There's a moment in every meaningful connection where someone will think back and realize what you brought into their life, not because you reminded them, but because your absence now highlights your value. You didn't just pass time, you made time matter. You didn't just fill silence, you made conversation feel. You didn't just exist in their world, you shifted it, however slightly, with your energy. That's emotional contrast. It's not about being better than someone else. It's about being true in a way others often aren't. It's the way you said goodbye with grace, the way you stood your ground without raising your voice, the way you loved without attachment. That's what echoes in someone's mind long after the moment ends. You never have to manufacture emotional contrast. It comes naturally when you've done the work to know yourself, when you're not afraid to express your values, your boundaries, and your desires. You automatically create emotional clarity, and clarity is powerful. Most people confuse, deflect, or avoid, but you stand still and speak directly. That alone feels different. It feels refreshing. When you bring that kind of energy into someone's life, it disrupts their pattern. Suddenly they're rethinking what they've accepted, what they've avoided, and what they truly want. You don't have to convince them of anything. They feel it in your presence. They sense the difference in how you move, how you care, and how you let go. Emotional contrast doesn't mean always being intense or profound. Thanks. It's as simple as being joyful in a serious world, laughing without holding back, dancing for no reason, complimenting someone with sincerity, being kind without needing anything in return. These are small things, but they stand out because they're rooted in presence. You become the calm in someone's chaos, the spark in their routine, the warmth in their coldest days. And when they leave that energy, the world suddenly feels a little duller, a little flatter, not because they can't be happy without you, but because your presence elevated what happiness could feel like. There's a reason why some people are hard to forget. It's because they connected with your soul, not just your surface. And when you live from that place, your energy lingers. It's not because of how you looked or what you wore, it's because of how someone felt around you. Safe, seen, inspired, understood. You offered something deeper than attention, you gave connection. And even if someone walks away from that, a part of them knows they've left something rare. Emotional contrast doesn't beg to be remembered. It simply lives so authentically that forgetting it feels impossible. It's tempting to think that you have to chase or convince someone to notice your value. But emotional contrast teaches you that your value is in how you show up, not how hard you try. When you stop overgiving and start being deeply present, you shift the entire dynamic. You're not trying to be chosen, you're choosing how to show up in the world. And when you do it with integrity, kindness, and emotional depth, the right people notice, they remember. Not immediately, always, but eventually, because emotional impact doesn't fade quickly. It comes back in quiet moments, in their silence, in their stillness, and they feel it. You don't have to stay in someone's life to leave a lasting impression. Sometimes, walking away with grace leaves the deepest mark. Not out of bitterness, but from self-respect. Not from anger, but from clarity. When you detach without resentment, it shocks people because most expect a reaction. Most expect emotional chaos. But you show something different. You show peace. And that peace becomes the contrast. The silence that speaks louder than any words. The absence that doesn't come from punishment, but from self-love. And that is what people sit with long after you're gone. The beauty of emotional contrast is that it doesn't require permission. You create it by simply being your truest self in a world full of performance. You show up with sincerity and you leave with dignity. And in between, you give people something real, something that stirs their heart and quiets their mind. When you live that way, you won't need to wonder whether someone misses you. Because at some point, they will feel the shift. They will notice the difference. They will remember the peace, the joy, the honesty, the presence. And whether they come back or not, you'll know you left something behind that was real. There is a quiet kind of power in learning how to pull back with dignity. It's not about creating distance to cause pain, but about reclaiming your space with calm certainty. You no longer react to every message, every inconsistency, or every delay. Instead, you pause, you observe, you choose yourself in moments where the old version of you might have begged for clarity. Silence becomes your strength, not your punishment. You don't have to explain your worth when your actions already speak it. With each decision to honor your peace, you shift the energy. The loudest statement you can make is to stop trying to prove anything at all. Most people are conditioned to chase when something feels uncertain. The fear of losing connection often overrides logic and self-respect. But when you've done the work to build your foundation, you realize not all distance needs to be closed. Sometimes space is the most respectful response to yourself and to the situation. Pulling back doesn't mean you stop caring. It simply means you've started caring for yourself more. You recognize when your presence is being undervalued and you step back without resentment. You don't beg for attention, affection, or effort. You give people the room to show up or step out. And in doing so, you reveal who is truly aligned with you. There's a difference between silence that's manipulative and silence that's protective. When you pull back with dignity, there's no hidden agenda. You're not trying to force a reaction. You're simply no longer available for confusion. You stop over-explaining, over-justifying, and over-giving. You give yourself permission to be still, even when your heart wants to reach out. That stillness creates clarity. It allows you to return to your center. And when you're centered, your energy becomes untouchable. You don't chase closure. You don't demand understanding. You become okay with not knowing everything because you trust yourself to move forward regardless. The most powerful energy shift happens when you stop waiting for someone to come around and start showing that you've already moved on from who you were in that dynamic. You evolve, you grow, you elevate. And with each quiet decision, you rise higher in your own life. You're no longer lingering in places that no longer see your worth. You're not announcing your growth, you're living it. That kind of transformation doesn't need validation. It speaks through your choices, through your peace, through the lightness you feel when you stop forcing connections and start aligning with truth. Pulling back is not about withdrawal, it's about returning home to yourself. Letting go of the need to respond to everything is a form of emotional maturity. You realize not every message requires a reply. Not every situation deserves your energy. You learn to filter your attention through the lens of peace. If it disrupts your calm, it loses access. That boundary isn't cold, it's wise. It protects your heart without hardening it. You still love, you still care, but you no longer give recklessly. You no longer abandon yourself to stay connected. You walk away not to teach a lesson, but to stay loyal to your own growth. And that kind of loyalty builds the self-trust that changes everything. There's something deeply dignified about pulling back without explanation. It shows that you don't need to make a scene to reclaim your power. Your absence becomes the only closure you need, not because you're bitter, but because you're better in alignment. You stop offering your energy to those who take it lightly. You choose presence over performance. And in doing so, you stop auditioning for love. You stop asking to be chosen. You choose yourself first. Every time you honor your silence over chaos, your intuition over insecurity, you step deeper into your worth. That quiet decision holds more weight than any confrontation ever could. What's often misunderstood is that pulling back doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be graceful. It can be calm. You don't need to block, ghost, or rage. You just stop overextending. You stop showing up where you're not seen. And you do it with kindness towards yourself and others. That self-control is powerful. It says you've moved beyond needing reactions to feel valuable. It says you've reclaimed your emotional landscape. And now only those who respect that space are allowed in. You're not punishing anyone. You're just protecting what took years to rebuild. Your peace, your worth, your direction. In time, your quiet withdrawal speaks louder than any words could. It lingers not as a threat, but as a truth. People feel it when the energy shifts. They notice when access is no longer free. Your presence becomes something rare. Something that can't be demanded, only invited. And only those who come with respect are welcomed. You stop chasing validation because your value is no longer tied to being chosen. You've become the one who chooses. You don't sit in rooms where love feels inconsistent. You create a life where your soul feels safe. And that shift rewrites every dynamic around you. Eventually, you stop needing to defend your boundaries. They become a natural part of who you are. You stop fearing disconnection because your connection to yourself is stronger. The people who are meant to be in your life will respect that shift. They will adapt or disappear, and either outcome is a blessing. You no longer see silence as empty. You see it as sacred. You understand that peace isn't passive, it's powerful. And in that peace, you begin to attract everything that once eluded you, not by force, but by frequency. Not by effort, but by embodiment. You become the energy you want to receive. Pulling back with dignity isn't about playing games. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that no longer tolerates emotional imbalance. It's not about withdrawal. It's about clarity. It's about knowing who you are and refusing to shrink to be accepted. And in that clarity, you stop asking why someone didn't choose you. You start choosing the version of you that no longer waits to be seen. The version that shows up, stands tall, and lets go without losing her softness. That version doesn't beg. She aligns. She doesn't chase. She trusts. And in trusting herself, she becomes untouchable in the best possible way. There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't fear being alone. When you become deeply comfortable in your own company, your energy shifts. You stop looking outward for validation because your life already feels full. You're not waiting for someone to complete you. You're already whole. That quiet confidence makes people curious. They wonder what you have that allows you to move through the world so self-assured. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's rooted. You've built a life that you love, not because of who's in it, but because of how you show up in it. That independence doesn't push people away, it draws the right ones closer. They don't feel needed, they feel inspired. Being okay without someone doesn't mean you're closed off to love. It means love isn't a requirement for your happiness. It's an addition, not a necessity. You're not chasing emotional highs or romantic attention to feel alive. You've already created a life rich in meaning, purpose, and peace. Whether you're single or in a relationship, you show up as your full self. You have passions, routines, goals, and standards that don't waver when someone enters or exits your life. That stability is rare. It tells others that they're welcome in your world, but not essential to it. They don't define your worth. You've already done that for yourself. When someone knows you're not dependent on them, it changes how they engage with you. They realize they have to bring value, not chaos. They can't manipulate your emotions by disappearing, giving mixed signals, or offering crumbs of affection. You don't react, you respond. You stay grounded in your self-respect. You're not afraid to walk away if something doesn't align, and that quiet strength is unmistakable. You're not hoping they'll choose you. You've already chosen yourself. That choice creates space for only healthy mutual connections to exist. You're not proving you're worthy. You're living like someone who knows they already are. There's a power in not making someone your emotional center. You can care deeply, love fully, and still have boundaries. You can feel connected without losing yourself. The moment you stop making another person responsible for your joy is the moment you truly become free. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop checking your phone for their reply. You stop analyzing every word and start living your life again. That shift is powerful. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring in a way that doesn't cost your identity. You love without losing. You give without emptying. That kind of emotional maturity is what sets you apart. Time alone isn't something you fear. It's something you cherish. In solitude, you find clarity. You reconnect with your desires, your direction, and your inner peace. You stop confusing attachment with love and intensity with connection. You begin to feel the difference between someone who fills a void and someone who adds to your abundance. You're no longer seeking people to escape loneliness. You're inviting those who complement your fulfillment. And that kind of energy is unmistakable. It doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It doesn't settle. It waits, it observes, and it receives what is aligned without force or fear. When you live this way, people feel it. They may not understand it at first, but they sense it. They notice you're not swayed by attention or affection unless it's consistent and honest. You don't respond to pressure or guilt. You don't compromise your peace for temporary validation. Your calm is unsettling to those who expect you to fall apart without them. But your strength is attractive to those who value depth. You're no longer driven by urgency or scarcity. You know that what's meant for you will never require you to betray yourself. That belief alone changes how you move and how others move around you. Eventually, someone realizes they can't shake you by withdrawing. They can't control you with silence or manipulate you with emotion. Your emotional detachment isn't cold, it's conscious. It comes from a place of deep self-awareness and maturity. You don't stay in cycles that feel inconsistent. You don't need drama to feel alive. You've found a deeper kind of peace. And anything that threatens it gets filtered out. That's what makes your presence valuable. Not because you withhold love, but because you've made love something that's intentional, not reactive, not desperate, not performative. When people return, it's often because they remember how it felt to be around you. Not the way you looked, not the things you said, but the feeling you gave them. You were stable in a world full of uncertainty. You were calm when everything else felt chaotic. You didn't cling, you didn't chase. You simply existed in your full self. And that feeling doesn't fade easily. It lingers in the background of their life. It contrasts every shallow connection they find after you. It reminds them of what it feels like to be around someone who doesn't need them, but chooses them. But the beauty of your strength is that you're not waiting. You don't need them to come back. If they do, they'll have to meet you where you are now, not where you were when they left. Because you've evolved, you've grown, you've moved deeper into your self-worth. You no longer entertain energy that drains you. You no longer explain your boundaries, you embody them. And when someone returns, they either rise to your level or fall away. Either way, you stay grounded. You're not seeking closure. You are the closure. You are the chapter they revisit in their mind long after the book has closed. This version of you isn't built on defense or fear. It's built on deep inner work and emotional clarity. You've faced the discomfort of being alone and discovered its gift. You've stopped begging to be seen and started seeing yourself. You've become someone who doesn't need love to survive, but who loves so purely that it becomes unforgettable. And that's what makes you powerful. You're not chasing a return. You're not waiting for someone to remember you. You're building a life that makes anyone who left wonder why they ever did. And by the time they realize what they lost, you will be somewhere they no longer have access to. Because the version of you they knew was just the beginning.